Alright, Chapter 21, Mastering Solidworks. Editing, evaluating, troubleshooting assemblies. Chapter goes through essential tools you need to get real-world work done, and doing it in a way that shows understand what you're doing. Edit, evaluating, troubleshooting skills or tools which help you to develop or deal with the reality of working with SolidWorks assemblies. This task can be daunting, tedious, unless you have work knowledge of the available tools. In this chapter, you will learn to manipulate existing mates, changing file names and location, evaluate assembly changes. Working with mates. When you think of the editing of assemblies and main task that comes into mind is editing mates and probably editing broken mates. Although you can do several kinds of editing in assemblies, such as charging assembly structure, replacing components, managing files, mates are really the biggest item you face when you're talking about editing assemblies. Chapter 4, creating simple parts and drawings, and Chapter 13, building efficient assemblies, introduce you into the world of creating mates between the parts or other items in assembly. Chapter is most concerned with the manipulation of mates that already exist. In assembly, you can find mates in two different locations, display them in the two different modes. First place, you'll find them in the mates folder at the bottom of the assembly feature manager shown in Figure 21.1. Listing mates and mates folder. Mates folders contain other folders that also contain mates to help organize them. Mates can be renamed, reordered, deleted, suppressed, edited from the list. By default, mates are listed order which they are created. Name each of the mate is followed by the names of the part and assemblies between which the mate was made. Alright, Figure 21.1 shows all the mates and assemblies shown with the mates folder, bottom of the assembly feature manager. So there's all your mates. Mates can have a warning marker or suppressed like other features inside parts. A red octagon with an X in it means that the mate does not meet geometric conditions. A yellow triangle with an exclamation mark means the mate is conflict with another mate. And a grayed out mate means mates are suppressed. Small f means the mate is suppressed because its part is fixed. A concentric mate with a center filled in the means that rotation is locked for the mate. Figure 21.2 shows example of these errors. You can see them from the mates in a list of one of the error or some warnings. Other mates also conflict. One of the biggest difficulty with the troubleshooting mates in assembly, although several mates are in conflict, only one mate may cause the problem. A good general rule in troubleshooting: list of mates at the bottom, list of bottoms from bottom to the top. This is based on the expectation that more recently added mates are the ones that causing trouble. Mate expert will discuss later in this chapter. A good tool for troubleshooting mates. Listing mates under components. Mates are also listed on the component feature manager. They are same mates, those listed with the mates folders at the bottom. However, they are components only. The way mates relating particular component listed in Figure 21.13 shows the mates listed in this way. Mates are listed in folder under the component in breadcrumbs. There's a very convenient way to list mates, making them easy to find, nicely organized. One of the drawbacks listing them this way is that when a mate causing an error, the error shows up in the mate folder at the bottom of the feature manager. An error flag appears on each part containing the bad mate. If you're a fan using breadcrumb display, mates are listed in this and that as well, with a list of mate symbols shown in the state of each mate. Additionally, sub-assemblies have the mate folders of their own. Parts from the sub-assembly can be mated to or features in the top-level assembly. Ideally, you should mate only a limited number of parts because sub-assembly and upper lever, but there's not always possible. Displaying mates instead of features. Another method of displaying mates under components enables you to see more mates from parts instances. Previous method shown in Figure 21.3, the mates were shown along with the features of the part. To show the mates associated with each part without the features, right-click the top level of the assembly tree display, then select View Mates and Dependencies. The option is shown in Figure 21.4. Notice that you can still access the features if you want. They are collapsed in a folder at the bottom of the list of mates. The more convenient option of looking at the mates with several parts one time. Alright, shows a mate with an eyeball. Working with View Mates tool. A name implies View Mates, special tool for viewing mates. You can access it from right mouse menu button. When you select a single assembly component, part assembly sub with multiple components. Figure 21.5 shows the View Mates windows with a frame and stem fork assembly selected and bike assembly located in the materials available for the download of Wiley website. On the website, to view the example, open the file bike solid assembly located in the folder material download chapter 21. Alright, now it shows a arrow with a line with some lines going in a horizontal direction. The icon shown to the left is distant ones, figure 21-4, indicate the path to the ground, so it's a ground path, which means the part of the link and the part of the either fixed or mated assembly, outlying parts that depend on other parts of their location. Path to ground part are always listed on top view mates window. The rest of the mates in the window are all parts that are selected. Parts displayed in blue graphic windows are parts made together from the components selected. The entire fork or subassembly is not shown, just the stem part that actually made it to the frame. As you select the mates, the view mates window, SolidWorks highlights the face edges involved as well as the mate names in the graphic window. View mates are useful tools for investigating mate relations between parts, especially in assembly, that have evolved over time in assemblies that someone else built that you must understand well enough to work with. Using the view mate error window. View mate error window looks identical to the view mate window, but it shows only mates that have error warning flags. It shows all the mates in the error's entire top level assembly, not just for selected components. View mate errors window is available only from right mouse button menu only with the components of that are mate errors. It is available only for the single selections, never the multiple components. Figure 21-6 shows this in the window. Using Mate Expert. Mate Expert tool helps you troubleshoot assembly problems. You can access Mate Expert by right-clicking the mate in an error. You can access it from the tools menu. Do not confuse Mate Expert with Assembly Expert. The Mate Expert does not have an icon. It deals only with the mates. The example initially creates the problem with the bike assembly. You can see how the Mate Expert deals issues that arise. Problem created here is the same as one earlier in the chapter. Forced to the seat, the bottom of the concentric with a stem. After clicking the diagnostic button, Mate Expert, you will see a result shown figure 21-7. Mate Expert returns one possible problem analysis problem panel over the property manager. In this case, only the mate's assembly causing trouble. The tangent one, rest of the mates display yellow warning triangle. Notice at the bottom of the SolidWorks correctly identify the one red marker with a mate that is not satisfied. The tool returns lots of information. You may need to sort through this to find some more relevant troubleshooting assembly. You should use whatever set of tools you will give the best information fixing the problem. If you're working with a tangle of mate errors, you may want to use other troubleshooting methods before you rely too heavily on Mate Expert, and where you give the Mate Expert glance to see if the points are something you've missed before you're trying to go in a robust method. 21-7 shows your Mate Expert in the property manager. Editing mates. You can edit mates using the same mate property manager you use for creating the mates. You can access property manager by right-clicking the mate and selecting edit feature from the menu. You can also select multiple mates. Edit feature causes the list of selected mates to show in the mates window of the mate property manager. Move from the edit one mate to another, just selecting another mate in the window. The mate property manager for existing mate is shown figure 21-8. One of the advantages of using method edit mates is that you can change the type of the mate simply by selecting property manager. This is different from the features such as fillet. As you select fillet type, create the feature with a fillet. You can edit it later, but change the type of the fillet. If you replace a mated to edit, you can delete the one you want to change from the mate selection box, but you must choose a new one. You can even select a entity from a different part necessary. Another feature of replacing mate entities is more tailored and specific tasks is replace mate entity tool, which is shows a mate with a blue and white icon. You'll find that right menu mouse button for the mate as well as shown with the left menu mouse button. You must be able to recognize it by the icon or tool tip. Figure 21-19 shows you access both edit features and replace mate entities tools from the right menu mouse button. Select replace mate entities display property manager called mate entities. This is an interface shows the entities and which parts are used together in a mate. In the mate to replace an entity, select the mate entity selection block and it will appear with a small selection block below this. Simply select the new entity. When you open the property manager, isolate toolbar will automatically appear. Isolate with the tool hidden hides the part whether they're not involved with the current operation. Mated entities property for the isolate the toolbar shown figure 21-10. One of the nice features about Replace Mate Entity is that you can select multiple mates before activating the tool from the right menu mouse button, and all the mates and entities will appear in the property manager. This makes changes several mates in one step relatively easy. Figure 21.9 shows the edit feature replacing mate entities with the right menu mouse button. 21.10 shows changing embedded entities in property manager isolate tool. You can select multiple mates to edit this way with the mate property manager. The multiple selected mates will appear with the mates panel toward the bottom of the property manager. See figure 21.8 where concentric 5 mate is shown. Alright, editing file management issues. File management in SolidWorks Assembly requires a certain amount of attention. You must be careful of changing file locations and file names and locations. You must use the correct tools. SolidWorks may lose track of where to find necessary data. The best way tool to use SolidWorks and file management is the product data management tools such as PDM Standard and PDM Professional. After SolidWorks and SolidWorks Explorer are good tools for the user who don't have access to product data management tools, but these tools require more expertise to keep your reference intact. Alright, using save options and pack and go. When making changes of files in SolidWorks Assembly, understand that save options will serve you well. Whenever you want to change the name, change the location, make a copy of a particular SolidWorks document, you can use the combination of save as, or save copy as tools as well as pack and go. The icon on the left shows the file menu, but the icon shown as a pack and go window header is different. Alright, the disk with a warning symbol and save command displayed with the dialog box first time you save the document. If you're saving the assembly of virtual components, if you may ask to save the assembly with a name and the additional asking you the name, save, and virtual components externally. Typically, save isn't an option for anything that other than initial placing and managing and naming your files. Alright, a pencil on the disk. Save the tool as when you want to save the current document in the new name. When you do this, SolidWorks leaves a last saved version of the previous part behind, and going forward, new name location used save as will be on the other one that remains in assembly. For example, if you have an assembly 1 and it's made of part 1 and 2, these files are already saved to the local hard drive, but you want to name the part 1 875003 basic structure solid part. Then you can use the save as command to do this. First you must have the assembly and the parts open. Then you can open part 1 in its own window. Use save as. From there you will get the dialog help sort when you want to happen. It's shown in 2111. The one case where you really shouldn't click don't show again box. You can also rename parts of Feature Manager, but you must select the Tools option setting first. Go to the Feature Manager page, setting System Options. Make sure that setting is called Allow Component Files to be Remain. Feature Manager tree is on, then rename. Just right-click on the component and select Rename. If you make the name change with the Window Explorer SolidWorks, you won't know anything about the name change. The next time you open the assembly, it will tell you it cannot find part 1 solid part, and will ask you to find it. Part 2111 shows the option before save as dialog box. More options section and save as with reference dialog box enables you to add a prefix suffix as well as simplifying in place function to rename files in the list. Remember that makes up the copy of the assembly to all parts, new name, location, SolidWorks. Frequently when the packet go to make the copy of the entire assembly with a new location or zip file, you use the transfer assembly of the parts to someone who does not have access to the local network. Pack and Go has all functionality of save as with the reference as well as some of the additional options. It also can replace files including drawings, simulation, results, and quick summary, and a number of parts and assembly and drawings that are being included. If you are not using the product data management application, Pack and Go can at least save as a main copy archive rename utility. Pack and Go window is shown in figure 2112. Alright, Challenge 2112 of the Pack and Go contains most of the file management. Select files to be packed and go. No unchecked files must be available to successfully render the model. And then you can save the folder, save to a zip file. Replacing components following the philosophy that delete is not an editing method. SolidWorks includes the dual replacement of the components improvement over the less graceful delete and edit technique. When you delete a component, you lose information that you cannot otherwise keep. Whether you deleted a sketch line, mate, or part in assembly, deleting more than double the work you have done. You have to do lots of repair work after your work. Make a deletion. The deeper in the design, the more data you lose when you're deleting something from it. Each piece of information SolidWorks has from other pieces with the information attached to it, the associated supposed to help rather than hinder you. Learning to use these tools in the way that you weren't meant to use them in one way to improve efficiency with the software. And so the work with the software rather against it. Alright, shows a yellow assembly part turn into a gray part with an arrow. Replace components to available the right menu mouse button. Top level component assembly now not components and sub-assembly, though you may have expanded. Trinicated right menu mouse button to see the double arrow over the button on the right menu mouse button. Figure 2113 shows property manager replace command. The all instances option is also an important one. Sometimes you need to replace only one instant with a particular component with some other part. All instances options make it easier and convenient to replace with just what you need. Other important options to do with the configuration, mates, and replacement part. Use the same configuration name as the original part. You can use the match name option if not, you can use the manually select option. 2113 shows the replacing component with an assembly. And an assembly with another component. Replace this component with this one. Option configuration match name manually select reattach mates. Reattaching mates can be tricky. Some of the more similar parts of the topology general layout of the model faces the more likely automatic reattachment mates will work. And if this mates cannot be reattached automatically, you'll be presented with the interface shown in Figure 2114. The interface shows each of the mates that cannot be attached automatically. With the small window showing equivalent face for the old part, it also asks you for the face of the new part, which matches the highlighted face for the old part to repair each mate. And so you have 2114 shows reattaching mate selected, indicated faces, replacement parts, property manager, mate it needs, message, show all mates, defer update. See the picture of the post on the fork and then isolate missing at knees. It's fairly easy process, certain better than deleting the original part with the reinserting the part and recreating mates. Forming and dissolving of sub-assemblies. When you initially create a reassembly, you may not always know exactly how you want to organize. Assemblies can serve the many purposes such for the motion, analyst, rendering, assembly, instruction, inspection, or bill of material. The structure, each of the type of assembly with a sub-assembly might be very different. Therefore, SolidWorks must be flexible, allow you to change the structure of the flying again without wasted effort with the deleting, recreating data. To create a new sub-assembly with an existing top-level assembly, select with a set component with the appropriate selection method, advanced control, select, window select, or so on. The right-click and then select the form new sub-assembly here. When the new sub-assembly is first created, SolidWorks just moves the selected components into the sub-assembly without any fanfare. New assembly is created with the virtual component, so it's just saved within the top-level assembly. If you wanted the immediate save of the new assembly, new sub-assembly named in the format similar to assembly upper bike. Hey. Alright, where the bike is named top level assembly, right click of the new assembly, select save assembly and external file from the menu. When forming, dissolving sub-assembly, you have to be careful about things like mates in particular and patterns in context relation. Each of these can be deleted with the structure changes. Be careful to understand your inter-assembly relations when making structural changes. Sort using a treehouse. SolidWorks Treehouse is a tool installed with SolidWorks where you can access through the Windows Start menu under SolidWorks Tools. Enables you to establish basic assembly structure product, including sub-assembly parts and even drawings. Use any of the templates available to your SolidWorks installation to establish structure, name the file, add configuration, establish custom properties, save them from local location where involved individual SolidWorks users can begin working on detailed geometry data to go into the file. You can even add existing files if you're reusing the data part of the design already created when you start mapping in the structure. Treehouse enables you to have CAD manager establish structure, intern add custom properties, energy designer creates detailed design, drafters create 2D drawings of sample structure shown in tree house window figure 2115. You can also edit existing assembly, dragging assembly file with the treehouse window, adding existing sub-assembly, existing top-level assembly by dragging File Window Explorer onto the assembly in the treehouse. Moving parts in and out of subassembly back in SolidWorks interface without the treehouse. You have the existing subassembly. You want to add it or remove it from it. You can drag the component's name in Feature Manager to accomplish this. Drag a part in the subassembly. Drag the file name onto the new name of the subassembly. You will see a special cursor shown in Figure 2116. Be sure pay attention to text tips being displayed, especially if you're not familiar with the icons. Figure 2115. Use treehouse. Establish product assembly structure. Using BB part as subassembly bike crank. In the example shown in 2116, on the bottom bracket is being added to the subassembly. If you want to move the part out of the subassembly into the upper level assembly, you have to drag the file name from the subassembly spot in the subassembly onto the name of the top level assembly. If you just drag part over the subassembly, SolidWorks might think you're trying to reorder the display. Within the assembly feature manager. Remember, the different symbols exist, moving parts up and down subassembly hierarchy, reordering the parts in feature manager. Undo works for this type of assembly operation. Alright, moving mates from assembly to subassembly. Sometimes when you move parts in and out of an assembly, SolidWorks requires you to move the mates to destroy certain in-context relation with the SolidWorks display with the message. Most of the mates to another level to break some of the external references. You must read message carefully. Try to determine whether they accept the conditions mentioned in the message. You may not be able to easily undo some of the actions after they are complete. And typical message is shown in Figure 21.617. Losing all in-context relations. A particular sketch could mean lots of the repair work, so it must be considered the things carefully. Alright, assembly structure, editing, red warning boxes when they are displayed, that they could be important. When a mate is moved at the top level of assembly to a subassembly, the mate is no longer solved at the top level, which means we may not be able to use the dynamic assembly motion on this part. With just move at the top level of subassembly level. You may need to employ a flexible subassembly, which solves a subassembly mates at the top level. The drawback of this technique is more mates to solve means more time to rebuild assembly document, and therefore slower working environment. Assembly edit actions often have consequences that may not anticipate. To be sure, pay attention to the warnings from SolidWorks software. Evaluate assemblies. Evaluating tools have the game with a better understanding what your start point is, and you cannot be more efficient with the change within selecting the file. You will learn some new ways to look and evaluate SolidWorks assemblies using the performance evaluation tool. SolidWorks performance evaluation tool is covered in Chapter 12, editing, evaluating, and troubleshooting, but is reviewed here to keep the related information together. Performance evaluation is an information tool for the other statistics and how many parts and subassembly lightweight parts so are on the assembly if other some device but our assembly performance various settings. Figure 2118 shows performance evaluation window. Alright, identifying feature manager symbol shows the part in a little block. You may wonder with a certainly rarely seen symbols in feature manager signifying lists include some of the ones that users often ask about. Flexible subassembly, lightweight blue feather, out of date lightweight red feather, path to ground maintenance between part and fully defined part. Assembly with a graduation hat, part made in the academic version of software. Bolt, toolbox. Following are some additional symbols of the feature manager of the part with the text name. Part is fixed, the opposite of the fixed to float. This indicates part is undefined, that there are not enough mates to lock a position. It indicates the part location is overdefined. Overdefined parts typically must have one or more mates removed. This is a situation you can fix in any case. Arrow indicates external references file outside of the current document. Arrow question mark indicates out of context reference, which means it is currently loaded and isn't currently loaded in memory. Arrow asterisk means external references locked. You can unlock the lock references. Arrow X means external references broken. You cannot repair broken external references using isolate function. Isolate is a tool that enables you to display only selected components. If you right-click the subassembly, select isolate, you have all the other parts are shown. Wireframe, transparent, hidden with a nice method to draw attention with a couple of parts and subassembly while still being able to see the rest of the assembly with a reference. Figure 2119 shows isolating tool and use activate isolate. Right-click on the part selection with the parts, click isolate the menu. So here's the isolation, and we've clicked the parts, and now you can use the isolation. When using isolation, a small toolbar shown as drawing 119 appears, gives you the option to show the rest of the part assembly in one of these three modes: wireframe, transparent, or hidden. As long as you have parts and part or parts isolated, the isolate toolbar will remain on the screen. The save icon isolate toolbar enables you to save current display of display state, lets it go back to a particular combination, displaying settings of the part. To return to the previous display, click exit isolate button. If you want to show another component with the isolate mode, click right click show hidden components, select the one you want to show, exit the show dialog, then the isolate display will be updated to show newly selected component. Alright, picture document with a refresh symbol, reload. For many people trying to try things do not always work out, reload is one of the most useful commands in SolidWorks. It's act shortcut existing current documents without saving the reopening. Reload is available to parts and assemblies, but not for drawings. You can find in the reload the file menu, editing, and toolbar, standard category, tools, customized commands. Figure 2120 shows the dialog appears on the invoke reloaded command. Notes for the dialog box. Option load reload read only if available. It includes only other file management options you need to be aware of, especially if you're working on an assembly with other SolidWorks users. So 2120 show the reloading assembly discard changes reload file name reader only use write access needs to save new version on disk and question marks. System components to reload change write access both. Mouse over the explanation point. Red indicates potential loss. Gray indicates initial dialog setting. Initial full path. OK and cancel and help. Reload is very handy. When you had make a change of the part of the subassembly do not want to keep it, you cannot use the undo command to get rid of it. The reload useful for the trying out of the technique. Do you want to save the result? But just be careful that you don't wind up discarding work you should keep. Save often. A command that you can use in conjunction with reload is the check read only files command. The command is available only with the toolbar icon. It's on the standard toolbar by default, but it's listed in tool customized command. So you have the check read only files, which crosses out the arrow, but it shows the reload on the file. Check read only files checks to see if the read only file has been changed. If the new version exists, the folder in which you are working, new versions exist. The tool brings the up to reload tool. Or the bottom line, you may create the work on SolidWorks, but you almost guarantee to spend more time editing than you did creating, because you need to even more to adapt editing, evaluating SolidWorks assembly than creating it. SolidWorks has a lot of tools to help you do this. Master file management is one skill that doesn't relate to engineering or design. File management is one skill that doesn't relate to the engineering or design, but all the CAD operators must be experts. Mismanaging a file meaning you lose lots of work, or worse yet, mismanaging, you can create problems with work that you don't really realize until it's too late. Exercise in SolidWorks Pack and Go to make a zip copy with an assembly that's in context reference. If possible, take a zip file to another computer with SolidWorks on it and open it and check to make sure that in context references are still in context, not out of context. Master it. Sometimes it's easier to get a bigger picture of small details separately when working on the file. Getting fail at 34 to work just right. It's not always convenient time to also be changing over structure of the product assembly and sub-assemblies. To get some practice out of SolidWorks Treehouse tool creates assembly structures for one of the company products or an automobile if you need it with a different idea. Gets a detail as if you can with the time having available. Efficient, one of the most important quality of the process of the worker tools used in SolidWorks performance evaluation tools look like the bike assembly or to evaluate which parts costing you must open on your computer. Cost is often measured by rebuild time. Make sure the recommendation of remodeling the bike is so the design costs are lower. Chapter 22, working with large-scale drawings.